Now let's talk word problems for these systems. Up until now, when we were doing word problems, we were given one variable that we could use, and then all the other variables had to be written in terms of that one variable. And that was because we weren't doing systems of equations. We were just trying to set up one equation and use it to solve the problem. But here, we're going to have two unknowns that we can work with and somehow create two equations from it. So remember, when we're trying to do word problems, we need to read the problem more than once. Always read it more than once. Construct a picture or a table if you can, if it's possible. Read it again. Make sure that it makes sense. Try to determine if there's some equation or relationship that we already know that could be used to help us solve the problem. We'll have two variables we need to solve for. We'll write two equations. We'll solve that system. We'll state the answer to the problem, and then go back and check and see, make sure that the answers are reasonable to what's going on in the problem. Try to think about what is reasonable and see if it makes sense. Here we have an airplane that can fly 500 miles in 2 hours when flying with the wind. The same journey takes 4 hours when flying against the wind. Find the speed of the wind and the speed of the plane. We're looking for two things, the speed of the wind and the speed of the plane. So let's let, it doesn't really matter, x be wind speed and y be plane speed. Since we're talking about distance, we could look at an equation that relates distance, rate, and time. So that's how I'm going to form my table. I've got two situations, the airplane flying with the wind and an airplane flying against the wind. With the wind means the airplane and the wind are traveling in the same direction, so the wind is helping the plane. The rate, speed is another word for rate, so with the wind means my plane speed is going to be helped along by the wind. With the wind, it flies 500 miles in 2 hours. Against the wind, it flies 500 miles in 4 hours. But against the wind means that our plane speed and our wind speed are in opposite directions. Our wind is slowing down the plane. So the wind speed is going to get subtracted from the plane speed because it's slowing the speed down, the overall speed of the plane. Now, we've got two equations and two unknowns, and we can set up our system. So this first equation, I've got 2 times y plus x equals 500. So I can distribute that 2 into the variables. And the second equation, I have 4y minus 4x equals 500. Or if I rewrite that, negative 4x plus 4y, which we'll do a little bit. From here, we can decide, do we want to use substitution or do we want to use elimination? I'm not choosing to use graphing because I have this 500 there. That's a really big number. I could use substitution, but all of my variables have coefficients that are not 1. So it might be better to use elimination. Let's try elimination. 2x plus 2y equals 500. Negative 4x plus 4y equals 500. Notice my x terms are opposite in sign. So I could multiply this first one by some number so that it equals positive 4. 2 times positive 2 will give me positive 4. So my first equation, 4x plus 4y equals 1,000. Second equation we can just copy over. Negative 4x plus 4y equals 500. X's are going to cancel. 4y plus 4y is 8y equals 1,500. So dividing by 8 on that, let's pull up our calculators. 1,500 divided by 8, we get 187.5. And this is in miles per hour because that's what our plane speed is in, miles and hours. Y was our plane. And that seems reasonable. It's faster than a car. It seems pretty reasonable. Now to find the wind speed, take that 187.5 and plug it into either equation. It does not matter. I'm going to use the first one, 2x plus 2y has to equal 500. I'm going to pull out my calculator again. 187.5 will give me 375 when I multiply by 2. Subtract 375. 2x equals 125. Divide that by 2. We get 62.5 miles per hour. Now that seems pretty big for wind, but that's because on the ground, air like that for us is hurricane wind type air. But when you're talking about way up in the sky, that could be reasonable. The wind's blowing that quickly, high in the sky where the planes would fly. And so we have the plane speed at 187.5 miles per hour and the wind speed at 62.5 miles per hour. In our next lesson, we'll talk about mixture problems. Mixture problems are another really good way of demonstrating solving systems of linear equations.